Well, thank you for staying. Thank you for joining us now for the AM News Review. And we're about to slice and dice the newspapers, the contents of them, of course, taking you to other countries, but also bringing you back to Ghana. We're going to be focusing, of course, on our national picture. Before I introduce my guest, this segment, as always, is brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And here's what they're offering you. If you're a man, and nowadays you don't have to wait till you're 40 or 50, even some people in their late 20s are coming up with prostate issues, which is why if you're a man, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic is offering you free screening when it comes to your prostate. It's a vital part of your body. There's also women. Now, what are they offering for women? Fertility screening for free. Nowadays, a lot of women come up with fibroids which affect their fertility. So many things. Things could be going on in your body that you are clueless about. And that's why you ought to get yourself checked for free. Go to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic and they'll check you out. Here are the number of branches they have. In fact, you can locate them here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. There's Kumasi Kronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji Estate. There's Tema Community 22, Tichiman Hanzo and Siama and Zima. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just to start the commencement of the news review, I am glad to have in the studio with me former president of the Ghana Journalists Association in the person of Afeil Money. He's taken the time, not on Zoom, he's here physically like he did the last time. Ifo, good morning.
Good morning, Toby.
They say there's no, that you should be the Toby. They say there's an outbreak of pink eye conjunctivitis, aka Apollo. So dating back to the Apollo mission, and that is why it came and we gave it that name. So we shouldn't shake hands too much because it's a viral infection and it's very highly contagious. I would have given you but it's good to have you in the studio.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
What are your memories of that, though? Have you ever had Apollo?
Yes, some years back, and it was really painful.
Very.
Yes, and the eye is a very important part of the body.
Yeah.
So if the eye is affected, it's the whole body suffers. I remember I was a schoolboy in those days, and we're asked to use seawater to treat it. And, remember, and the seawater too can be punitive.
I had a doctor here in the studio with me yesterday, and she's from the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. She actually walked us through practically everything when it comes to conjunctivitis or pink eye. And one of the worst things you can do, because the eye is so sensitive, and especially if you have something on the eye, the sensitive, the cornea, I think she mentioned, and you don't know it, you could actually not just have the viral infection, which is pink eye or Apollo as we call it here. You could introduce bacteria on it, which will now give you a serious, major problem. So actually what you did, you're just fortunate that at the time you may not have had any, because you may not see it. You can't see it, back into your eye. But there could be something going on. And if you add seawater, urine, breast milk, I hear people use all kinds of things, which can actually, she says, those things could actually make you go blind.
So this reinforces the need to intensify education.
Yes.
On
the
implications of applying the wrong medicine.
You remember back then when you had chicken pox, they will also take
remember.
Seawater with a bit of sand. I don't even want to remember.
Definitely the evil.
But those were the days. Let's come to the latest in current affairs and then get into the papers. There's this bit, and I'm bringing it up because you're a veteran. You've been there. You've done that. I'm talking about the second round of the domestic debt exchange. The pensioner bondholders are saying it must be some sort of error that they are adding us to this one or even contemplating doing it. Professor Godfred Bokpin, let me just see. He says government is spending as though it were not in a crisis. So you keep on spending, and now you want to basically mop up all those portions you hadn't included in the erstwhile debt exchange, which is only going to make things even harder economically for everybody, including the aged. I remember when were talking, we had our living standard series and everything going on, you would speak to some people who said, look, I'm a pensioner. I invested in these bonds and all of that. Now I'm not getting my returns. My health care is hinged on that. My dialysis treatment, this, that. And now this is going to happen. I want you to reflect on that. Together with this, it appears from latest research that women in Ghana earn 34% less than men, regardless of whether they are at the CEO level or whatever. What are your quick reflections to these two stories?
I think yesterday I was listening to MFR, who was passionate about this subject. And,
MFR Power.
yeah, MFR Power. And I had another explanation. One explanation, and the explanation was that men venture into certain areas like mining.
Mining, right.
Yes, which fed them more money than women.
So risk, the risk factor.
The risk factor. So this explains the disparity in remuneration.
But how about the other areas, like media? It's technically not that dangerous unless they are sending you like Maxwell like Baba to Somalia or something. It's technically not that. What happens there?
I know in the world there's been media institutions like multimedia, like GBC, and the state-owned institutions. They go strictly according to guidelines in remuneration. But in the private media in general, individual journalists negotiate their salaries. And they look at your social value. And that determines how much you'll be paid.
Some say women don't negotiate well when it comes to salary. I am not inclined to believe that, though. I think, aren't there social structures as well that militate, if you like, against women?
Certainly, yes. The women are still not at par with men in so many areas of national and social life. So this underlines the need for women advocates to take up this fight to ensure a kind of parity as far as remuneration between men and women are concerned.
So we're advocating here, right here,
yeah.
From the studio.
Yeah.
I mean, if they are doing equal work, then why not give them equal pay? I think it's only deserving.
Equal pay, equal work. And again, we should reward excellence.
Right.
And so those who, in terms of output, are above their peers, the system should reward them in order to
motivate them.
Incentivize. So that motivation factor is very important.
But even as we say that, let me also say on the other side, because sometimes you hear stories about women in certain positions and today this, tomorrow that, today, I don't feel this. And that I'm just being realistic. I speak to CEOs, I speak to people up there, and they'll tell you that, look, this man, come what may, very likely, look, let me use myself as an example. I practically don't go on leave. And it's not as though I intentionally did that. I practically don't. I think the latest leave I took to sit exams, write my special paper and all of that is the longest I've ever taken, 1 month. I practically don't go.
It's good to read.
Sometimes I'm forced to go.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
You get it? Because the systems are in place. Sometimes I'm forced to go. But so you can, some would say we get the maximal, goodies from this person. But someone else will, today, of course, leave is justified within that period. Yeah. But someone has exhausted the leave.
And it's a right.
And there are always other complaints here and there. It's about managing yourself.
Sure.
So I know that women, for example, every month they have their blood flow, all of that. You have to take that into consideration. They may get pregnant. You have to take that into consideration. But there are extraneous factors that sometimes people will explain to you beyond even these. This and that. And every day there are excuses and this and that. It becomes complicated. So even as we talk about the side that women should be paid fairly for equal work, let's also look at some of the other factors that sometimes claw away at maybe likely benefits. Because sometimes employers have that in mind. I've been told of situations where, though unfair, people went for interviews and they were asked, do you have children? Women. I don't think the men would be asked that, but they asked the women because they had suspicions that, if they had children, it would impact their work. you would be asked, are you pregnant? Are you thinking of getting pregnant within the next 6 months, 1 year? I think that those are very invasive questions, but they are coming up because of some of these things. So the balance.
And to be fair to women, it is important to articulate the point that some are more productive than men.
True. Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
I believe you can find
one of the foremost that come to mind, Angela Merkel of Germany, the former German chancellor. Wonderful.
Sure.
I think she's outperformed many other male chancellors.
Sure.
Anyway.
All these factors into consideration.
Sure. Sure thing. So let's start with the newspaper end of our conversation now. And the Daily Graphic this morning says, maintain standard bearer role for reliable information, UBA to Daily Graphic. So the media in the picture. Limited voters registration, something I definitely want to talk to you about. EC revises targets. And you'll be in a kumenchi. Beware of scammers, GTech cautions mature students. And police promotions, 40 chief inspectors sue IGP. All right. Then in other stories, let's look at the back page. Chief Imam Qatari ambassador inaugurate learning center, and there's Doli Bridge collapse diverts Bole Wa traffic. And this thing is just look at this. Look at this. You can't see that. Okay, now you can see just imagine it. The bridge gone. And if you were applying that route when this happened, you'd be a goner.
And I hear commuters have been compelled to use canoes to
canoes. Can you imagine that?
And the extra costs. Apart from the extra costs.
Sometimes I wonder what is wrong with us in this country. But let me start with that story. Road transport from Bole to Wa in northern Ghana has been cut off following a collapsed bridge on the route. The bridge at Doli in the Bole district is said to have been washed away after a dam by the side of the road burst last Sunday. I'm sure, again, some maintenance, stuff people should have been doing, wasn't done. Now, the road from Bole in the Savannah region to Wa in the Upper West region has since become impassable, leaving commuters stranded. Consequently, the Ministry of Roads and Transport has advised motorists to use alternative routes to access the areas. A statement from the Ghana Highway Authority said preliminary investigations indicated that the dam overflowed its banks following a 4-hour downpour, resulting in the bridge being washed away by floodwaters. 4 hours, and away easy. Then if it rains like how it has happened recently in some parts of Asia and the rest for about 8 hours or a full day, what will happen to us in this country? The whole country will be swept away. We're so much at the mercy of the elements.
The volume was unanticipated.
Unanticipated?
Yeah.
We have rainy seasons. We are fully aware. We are entering the second, if not entered, the second rainy season.
Climate change is also to blame for the rains which are pouring in torrents and causing havoc. In my area, in my village around Adenta Commandos, the roads, inner roads, many of them are impassable now.
As for Adenta, I have been plying that route. Adenta, it's another business altogether.
It is.
But, you know, I always go back to this, and it breaks my heart. You know, years ago, in the I shouldn't say mid 2000s because we're still, but I think from 2010 all the way up there was a Canadian who was betting every year that Accra would get flooded. Betting. Mm-hmm. And he would always win. So the betting company had to cease with that bet. Because till today, if he were still betting, he would win. And how can you live like that so that someone can even bet on your misery and get it spot on every year? How?
Last year, the Roads Minister did promise that as much as $400 million had been invested in the drainage system in the capital, and the impact is negligible, if not zero. So that should serve as a wake-up call for the authorities to fix this perennial problem sooner than later, because it is really wreaking havoc. And it's also come with a lot of financial implications, economic implications. People cannot go to get to their destinations. Workers get stranded. Business people are also affected in terms of incomes. So the rules authorities, the minister in particular, should up his game and ensure that at least certain vital roads are in better shape in response to the vagaries of the weather.
Well, honestly, I think there are too many jokers claiming they are workers for government, too many appointees who do practically nothing, and we applaud them for the crumbs they give us when they should be giving us the entire cake, crumbs. Then we clap for them. It's a sad situation in Africa, and that is why I will say again that we shouldn't underestimate the wind of putches, coup d'etats going on. Why? No one wants a coup in Ghana, definitely not.
Certainly, yes.
No one wants any civil strife, because I've been through that, I've lived through that. When you have mortar shells hitting your house, it's not funny. When you have bullets flying past, when I remember that Lutheran church around the 9th Street in Monrovia at the time, an entire church, people had been killed in there. The stench using that route was amazing. It's something that makes your skin crawl. So no one wants that. But with the stupidity of some of those who call themselves leaders, these things, eventually, when you back people to the wall, look, our population is largely youthful. Estimations that are that by 2050 we would have over 50% practically across Africa. Look at what Alassane Ouattara is doing in Côte d'Ivoire. He's extended his 6-year or so term. He's in his 3rd term. No one will talk about that. When disaster strikes, then they will come and say, oh, ECOWAS. We will not be proactive. We want to be reactive.
We all understand the ECOWAS image is in a gutter, and recently they had the audacity to plan to invade Niger.
That plan is in tatters.
Yes, in tatters.
They can't even muster, the force.
No. It's and another day I heard the Nigerian President Tinubu,
Bola Tinubu.
Yes, extending the 1-week ultimatum to the junta leaders in Niger to 90 days and 3 months or so. Another joke.
He will keep extending it. He will keep extending it. Let them, instead of focusing on human security, like I keep reminding them, the economy of the ordinary person on the street. Look, I go around sometimes and I'm so heartbroken. Robust youth out there with all the vital energies, with all the youthful exuberance, and they have nothing to channel themselves into. This morning we were talking about a certain stretch, Danyame among others, where people are getting robbed and so many things. Why? Do you think the average person, if he had a means of bringing ends to meet, he would go and waylay somebody to rob him or her? He would want a better life for himself.
Certainly, yes.
With the risks involved.
Certainly, yes. Admittedly, we have challenges all over, but and the seas of instability or takeovers, democratic decay hit us hard in the face. But all this does not justify.
No, definitely not.
The invasion of civilian life by the military. Thank God, since 1992, when as a nation, we said no to the bullet course and embraced the ballot box. Democracy has been taking root in this country. But at the same time, we ought not be intoxicated by the fact that we've been practicing democracy for all these years and we've changed government.
We like touting that.
Yeah, we like
consecutive changes of government. Yes. We should learn from Kenya.
So, sure.
When that furore broke out, who would have expected?
Sure.
But you see, something our leaders don't pay attention to. We would talk about Rwanda and Paul Kagame and the fact that, he has these tendencies and those tendencies and all of that. I agree. It's excessive in some way, sometimes. But look at the development there. I'm sure you've been to Rwanda. Yeah. Look at Kigali.
Yeah.
Look at 1994, when the genocide happened and what Rwanda was like. Look at Rwanda today. And you come to Accra and you ask yourself, this place looks like, we're talking about touting it as creating the cleanest city in Africa and all of that, all hogwash.
It's a target. And we are told...
If within 8 years, you say, you have a term of 8 years. If in your 7th year, you're at a certain point, you don't need, to be a...
Maybe we should expect a miracle.
A miracle. Let's get into these stories and then you come through with your 2 stories. So very quickly, police promotions. 40 chief inspectors sue IGP. 40 chief inspectors of the Ghana Police Service have sued the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Akufu-Dampare, the Police Management Board, and the Attorney General over what they describe as the unjustifiable refusal of the service to promote them. In a writ filed at the Kumasi High Court, the police officers claimed they were excluded from a series of promotions prompted by a special amnesty granted to police officers who passed out from police training schools by 2008 and had obtained university degrees as of 2020. This is a convoluted one. It's a complicated story by all standards. And there's also limited voter registration. EC revises target. The Electoral Commission has said it does not expect to cover all 1.35 million persons targeted for registration in the ongoing limited voter registration exercise. The EC said its immediate focus was to register 52% of the targeted population by the end of the 21-day exercise, which started on Tuesday, September 12. It ends on October the 2nd. The EC, I don't know what is going on because I listen to them. I intentionally listen critically. Dr. Srebo Okweku, Dr. Bosman Asari, when he decides to speak and all of that. I don't know what they are sitting on. But I'm just watching how they've been acting, and I get alarmed sometimes because why extra cost if you say, yes, district level elections, but if as many people can register as possible and you can save extra costs going into the main and especially when you know the same challenges are going to feature. Why all this back and forth? It makes no sense to me.
Number one, I think they need to take a hard look at their style of communication. The message inconsistency in what they put out there. I listened to one of their top officials on his file on Saturday. And
I think it's Dr. Kweku.
Dr. Kweku. And he did explain that they want to protect the sanctity of the voters' register. And this explains the limited registration exercise. But when James had the opportunity to speak to the media, she said they didn't have the budgetary support to extend the registration to the polling centers. Certainly, those 2 explanations conflict, and there's a need for them to harmonize whatever each of them wants to put out there in the public domain. At the same time, we need to applaud the obstinate posture of the EC chairperson, a word of pressure from external forces.
The Constitution talks about not, badgering them into any corner. But of course, that also behoves them to act in certain, for lack of a better word, rational way. So that, because if you have all of these CSOs on your back, you have opposition, 5 parties on your back, there's something amiss.
The high degree of rationality and flexibility in whatever they do. And political parties, whether you like it or not, they are the building blocks of democracy.
Right.
So you cannot do without the political parties. So one would expect that even the conceptual framework should be created for the EC and the parties to at least find a common ground within which they will operate. And we have this history which portrays the EC and the opposition party to always be on collision course. And I don't understand the perennial irritants in the relationship between every opposition party and the EC.
An electoral commission, it appears, on the face of it, is always on the side of the ruling administration.
And maybe this
and they always seem to support. I mean, we brought this up, and the theories that come forth, it's always amazing. It's just mind-boggling, and that's something I feel we ought to get past. Else, again, we could dig ourselves into a problem someday. And of course, now you have the situation where, should the former president Mahama come to power, should that happen, already there have been threats about the Electoral Commission's chair and certain key figures. So you're going to have a sort of tit-for-tat situation where you did this, okay, I'll do this. Oh, the judges of this court, okay, so I'm going to. That will not inure to the benefit of our democracy. It will only create a recipe for disaster.
That's all. We should not get into. So in everything we do, our actions, such as the EC, its actions in inactions should not serve as a magnet.
Right.
To attract controversy and attract unnecessary criticism from, especially CSOs who mean well in voicing out the flaws, the challenges we have.
I believe the EC,
challenges.
The EC. I am supposing she means well. The chairperson as well.
Yes,
I am supposing that. But
means well.
They should also understand that these CSOs are not coming out of ill will for the country, but positive will. So sometimes the best way, I read a story, when you meet people like this, they will likely meet you like this. When you meet people like this, they will likely meet you. I mean, I've even engaged lunatics, violent lunatics before. When you're nice to them, they are sober. When you are aggressive to them, they are aggressive back at you. Even those whose marbles we claim they have lost. Imagine that. How about the ordinary person? But anyway, let's do your newspapers.
Again, on the EC, it is not within the bounds of possibility for the EC to satisfy all political parties.
No, definitely not.
But at the same time, the EC should lodge it at the back of its memory that it cannot do the other political parties.
Indeed.
So the two.
So if you go to IPAC and there are certain conversations, and then all of a sudden you come back and you go full steam ahead with what you had been discussing that had not been concluded on, and they said no, these aspects, and you go full steam ahead, and you keep doing that, it becomes a cycle. What story does that paint?
Yeah, and we also ought to square logic with reality.
Indeed.
You know, we on paper we have about 26 political parties in Ghana. So if the majority go to APAC and agree on something which will be opposed by one of the two major parties in Ghana, you know, ours is a two-party system. Two-party system, virtually. Even though on paper we have 26 political parties or more.
Right.
So the EC cannot do without one of the major parties.
True.
So at all times, they should try and create that conceptual framework so that they can take all, especially the two parties, at all times on board in whatever way.
Let's quickly do some of the major headlines from the papers you have as we get ready to wrap.
We have EC rejecting claim that it's in bed with MPP. This is a perception or misperception that the EC is in bed, and as we said, that has been a perception all over because ruling parties are seen to be in bed with the EC or whoever is in power or whoever chairs the EC, and so we want them to disprove this notion.
In fact, I had the very first interview. I wasn't on this platform yet when Jean Adukwe Mensah became Electoral Commission chair. Her very first interview with anybody in the media was with me. And that very question I put her about, stuff about that. I remember, I still have that interview somewhere. And today, it's still on. That also tells us something. It means I feel not enough has been done to banish the ghost of that thinking. Till today.
Yeah, in reality, there might be nothing problematic between the government and the EC. But again, we need to look at the posture. We need to look at the posture of the EC. And they should also be sensitive at all times to views from
the other side.
From the other side, so the CEOs, CSOs.
Any other stories from the other paper? You have the Ghanaian Times as well.
The Ghanaian Times...
EC there as well.
Yeah, the angle is on the number of potential voters who will be added on to what we have, 182. And we live in a country where electoral outcomes can be decided by about 40,000 votes. So this 182 is quite significant a number. And again, this underlines the need for the EC to open up registration at all centers. Democracy, you all understand, is expensive. And as the saying goes, what is worth doing
must be done
worth doing well.
Right.
So if it's worth registering, capturing as many as possible, and we are told that the EC did not factor this into their budget. I believe in drawing up the next budget, it should be possible for all electoral areas to register potential voters.
All right. Let's cap off. The Daily Guide this morning says it regurgitates the story about the EC. Nam1 faces court today. I killed my madam, houseboy. Very sad situation. Beautiful young woman with all her future ahead of her, and this dastardly act happened. Agona West NDC MPP in bloody clash, and Julius Deborah changes gear and Mahama running mate bid. You can catch a copy of the paper to get the details. Economy Times, Bank of Ghana reviews health of economy, and Bank of Ghana urges banks to tender capital restoration plan for a progressive recapitalization. Dr. Governor of the Bank of Ghana, on the back of your monetary policy and all of that, are you aware of what the banks are, in terms of the loan structures, especially variable loans? Do you know what they are charging clients now? I know someone, I've been told by a bank, where someone whose salary, they would take a portion out of it for the loan. Now the entire salary is not enough. The salary goes and the person must find more money to top up. That's where we are. Anyway, I feel money. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Pleasure.
I nearly shook your hand, right? For the sake of pink eye, let's go.
Prevention is also better than cure.
This segment always brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering free prostate screening, free fertility screening for women. Locate them at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumase Kronoma Abuehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. Takrady Anaji State Tema Community 22. Techiman Hanswa and Siaman Zama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Bringing us to the end of the news review. Up next, we have sports with Muftau Nabila Abdullahi.